On the 14th of June of '08, the Commission decided to hold an inquiry into the incident of the 27th of May at Persiaran Bandar Mahkota Cheras 1. The terms of reference of the inquiry are to inquire whether or not there was law enforcement personnel in performance of their duty to maintain law and order had used excessive force during the incident. If there was use of force, then whether there was any violation of human rights of any person or persons, and who were responsible for such violation, and to recommend what action to be taken against those responsible for the violation of human rights of such person or persons. The panel arrived at findings by weighing the evidence adduced at the inquiry, the demeanor of the witnesses, and the manner in which the witnesses answered the questions. The panel has reached, in relation to terms of reference, the following conclusions. On the question to inquire whether or not there was any law enforcement personnel in performance of their duty to maintain law and order had used excessive force during the incident, the panel of inquiry finds that there was excessive use of force by the law enforcement personnel against Chang Jun Ho and Chan Siu Meng during the incident at Persiaran Bandar Mahkota Cheras 1. The other question is, if there was use of force, whether there was any violation of human rights of any person or persons. The panel is of opinion that excessive use of force by the law enforcement personnel violated the safety and the security of the following individuals, that is, Chan Jun Ho and Chan Siu Meng. The next question is, who were responsible for such violation? The evidence indicates that the police and FRU personnel were responsible for the violation of human rights in this incident. However, due to the contradicting as well as unclear evidence, the panel is unable to identify who among the law enforcement personnel were responsible for such violation. The panel then recommends what action to be taken against those responsible for the violation of human rights of such person or persons. Among them, the panel of inquiry recommends that the FRU and the police urgently implement the international standards as guidelines for the personnel on the use of force, which are: human life should be respected and preserved. Police officers should exercise restraint in the use of force and minimize damage and injury. The progression of use of force should follow 5 stages, that is, verbal persuasion, unarmed physical force, force non-lethal weapons, force using impact weapons, and finally, deadly force. The police should also ensure that assistance and medical aid are rendered to any injured persons and to notify relatives and close friends, both at the earliest possible moment. Any injury of death caused by the use of force by police officers shall be reported promptly to superior officers. Upon receipt of these reports, there shall be an effective review process available with the exercise of jurisdiction of independent administrative or prosecutorial authorities, and the report shall be subjected to administrative review and judicial control. And finally, the police force should adopt and implement clear rules and regulation on the use of force by police officers. Such rules and regulation should be based upon ethical issues with regard to the use of force and firearms. Further, there must be constant review of the rules and regulation. The other recommendation that the panel made is that the police and FRU require all their personnel to display their names and badge numbers visibly and clearly during field operations. And finally, since it has been found that excessive use of force, the panel finds that it had been used on the gentleman that I mentioned earlier, which is Jan Jun Ho and Chan Xiu Meng. Then the panel strongly recommends that the police conduct their own investigations to ascertain which personnel and had used excessive force on these two gentlemen with a view of taking disciplinary action against said personnel and where necessary to recommend to the public prosecutor for further action. The findings and recommendations herein are unanimous findings and recommendation of the following members of the Commission, that is, of myself, Dr. Dr. Chum, and Dr. Khalid Ibrahim. That noted that the police did not, in this particular case, attend to the injuries of the two victims immediately and took time in making arrangements to send them to the hospital. And also the fact that the panel inquiry further observed that although no excessive use of force was used on the person who sat as a puncher in front, which named as W2, and also the person who was sitting behind her, nevertheless, their safety and security were threatened by the aggressive actions of the law enforcement personnel at that incident. Well, we can only present our recommendation, and we are not in a position what the authorities are going to do about it, but for as long that, as we make our observation and findings, we will proceed to recommend, and I'm sure and I hope, after repetitious recommendation, that it will be taken up at some point or other.
Just to add that, as you know, if we keep on making conducting public inquiry and make recommendations, we hope that as it continues, that ultimately it will wear them, and then wear the police out, and they will take action, hopefully.
But of course, I think, based on our observation, there is a little bit improvement compared to the previous one.
Yes.
To be compared to those Kesas highway,
or even
compared to what is happening right now. And recently, we can see, I don't want to say that because of our recommendation, but I think our recommendation gives some impact on that. So there is some improvement, but sometimes, you know, based on the operation, when people on the ground, they're faced with some situation that they cannot control, this is come against the problems to us.
While this inquiry is very important, but I think what is very important is that, you know, the MPs should also take up the issues. So the more people take up the issues, the greater will be the impact. So we just can't just leave to one body, and we hopefully that the MPs will take up the issue.
For example, on this identification,
Yeah,
and we are very concerned about that, because if the identification was there, it would have been very much easier to really zero on who is responsible, because it's not fair to have to zero on the whole group of the police force. It's only one or two that has actually committed an offense. We can only recommend, and hopefully those who are responsible to take out recommendation should act upon it. And if we did, well, hopefully there's no more incidents in the future that we have to recommend again.
But